So this is a huge tangent that I started writing while I was working on a different video, the one about Squirrelflight's lives. To the point where it just took up a bit too much of it while also being totally irrelevant to my point, so I've separated it from the script. Warrior Cat's leaders get 9 lives, but this has been broken 3 times, by Nightstar, Sunstar, and most recently Windstar. Meanwhile, a 4th cat, Tigerstar II, gets all 9 despite being in nearly the same situation as Windstar. He's also written by the same team, and this book is written by the same author as the book where Windstar gets her lives. These 2 books are only 1 book separated. So one is a super edition from the year 2015, then there's the unrelated to this discussion Hawkwing's Journey in 2016, and then Tigerheart's Shadow in 2017. These books all remind me of grooming dogs, because I was working as a dog groomer when they came out. Nightstar is a first arc leader who takes over after Broken Star is exiled. He's denied leader lives because Broken Star still lives, seemingly, and dies not long after to illness because of it. I say seemingly because the actual explanation that's given doesn't make any sense. Nightstar is in fact the leader that the ShadowClan cats chose. We had a whole little book about it. Sunstar is a cat that exists between Pinestar and Bluestar. A lot of people seem to forget he exists, thinking that the leadership in ThunderClan passed directly from Pinestar to Bluestar, but this isn't the case. However, he only gets 8 lives because Pinestar absconds with one when he becomes a kitty pet. Windstar, formerly Windrunner, is the first ever leader of WindClan. She dies before receiving her lives, but still gets 8 of them afterwards. And then we have Tigerstar II, who seemingly dies before reaching the moon pool, but still receives all 9 of them. All of these put together puts a very large, what? On the whole giving lives thing? Nightstar and Sunstar's situations fittingly contrast with each other, but Windstar and Tigerstar's situations seem to carry completely opposite intentions. So the first question to ask is, does the leader's original life count? And the answer is no. Windstar is the only situation in which the cats still having their original life matters. The implication with Pinestar is that the life that he has currently is one from StarClan, which does ask the question, hey, where did Pinestar's life go? The answer is StarClan has it. Or more so, it was destroyed or something. It's gone. It doesn't matter. He's got one of StarClan's lives, and he's living as a kitty pet until he mysteriously dies. Obviously, StarClan is giving them 9 lives. If or not they had a life to begin with, or if or not they're killed, is really up in the air, but they definitely can only die 9 times. And this includes Tigerstar II, because even though he did get 9 of them, one of them is being used to bring him back. This doesn't happen to Windstar. She doesn't get a 9th life, she just gets 8 instead, and it's ambiguous if or not she was, restored a life. As Windrunner dies, Mothflight begs for StarClan to do something, but Greywing turns to her and says, we can't save this life. Then he says we can only give her our gift, and 8 cats give Windrunner a gift. Only 8. There's no, secret 9th magical shine or anything that comes in and revives her. Hypothetically, from this, we might even be able to glean that Windrunner only has 7. The scene really reads like she revives after receiving Greywing's first life. I think the real reason that the first life doesn't count, or the original life doesn't count, is just an author reason. The best answer I can give is because they wanted to do 9 live ceremonies where each of the lives was given by an individual, as opposed to 9 live ceremonies where they only get 8. And around here, people are probably going to say, yeah, they take away the original life and they give them 9 more. But this doesn't happen for Windrunner. And it also doesn't happen for Tigerheart. Both of these cats, seemingly, are down at least 1 life because they lost their original life before getting to StarClan. The reason people think this is just because of a passage in Firestar's quest. It's not repeated or referenced anywhere else. She feels so cold, Echo Song whispered. Bending down, she breathed softly into Leaf Dapple's ear. It didn't even twitch. Firestar, she's not dead, is she? No, Firestar reassured her. Something like this happened to me. I think her old life is being stripped away so that she can receive her 9 new ones. I don't think that Firestar knows what he's talking about. But the real question is, was Firestar lying here? Probably not. I mean, not at this point in time, at least. Firestar does have a bit of a weird experience at the start of his leadership ceremony. It's massively cold and dark, with him saying all of the warmth has been sucked from his body, and he can't tell anything has happened aside from his legs cramping and feeling as if he's made of ice. From what I can tell, he's the only leader that gets a leg cramp. As soon as he opens his eyes, however, he loses those sensations and he's able to move about in StarClan. This isn't the case for all of them. Every character who receives 9 lives, seemingly, receives all 9 regardless of if or not they seem to die first. Bluestar gets sucked into a void, but quickly lands in StarClan's hunting grounds. Aside from the coldness of the rock, she doesn't get a sensation of dying, or coldness or leg cramps, and her mouth is dry. Crooked Star is almost identical. He doesn't get the sensation of dying, coldness, or leg cramps, and his mouth is also dry. Tall Star has the floor lurch beneath him, and as soon as he opens his eyes, he's on the moor. No leg cramps, no coldness, no death. Tiger Claw Star feels himself being tugged gently to sleep. No falling. There's a cold wind that blows by him, but not the coldness that Firestar describes inside his body. Ramblestar passes out, complete wave of exhaustion. There's a flash of freezing from the water, but like with the Moonstone, it's the object's own coldness, and it's not described as being a coldness that comes into his body or is of his body. He falls asleep and then wakes up because StarClan is too loud. The ground doesn't fall from him, and he doesn't go to a new place. StarClan appears around the moon pool instead. These last 2 ones are both from the Ultimate Guide and should be taken with a grain of salt. Leopard Star, by the new team, has the same ground falling from under you sensation. No coldness, no freezing up, lands in StarClan, oof. One Star, however, has the cold of the moon pool spread to his whole body. The thing about the moon pool and the Moonstone is that they are always cold to the touch. That's just a trait of the object. River Ripples is a bit weird, but mostly in line with the others. He mentions the rock is cold, but doesn't get the body coldness. He falls into the darkness, and to him it feels like falling from a waterfall. He has the same falling sensation as the others after he stops struggling, and he finds himself in a hollow. So while you might be able to read Firestar's experience as a death, it's hard to read most of these others as a death. Maybe 1 Star's? There is, however, one other cat who experiences basically the exact same thing as Firestar, and that is Blackstar in his novella. It reads, "A shock of cold shot through him. His body jerked in sudden pain, and then his legs and tail grew heavy. He was afraid to try and move, sure he would be unable to. It felt like he was dying. He had never been so cold, not even in the harshest leaf bare. He shook in terror. Why didn't Running Nose warn me about this? Has StarClan decided to punish me?" Now, this was 2 years ago in one of the novellas by Clarissa. It seems very clear that whatever they did to write this, they did reference Firestar's original ceremony. But, again, it's been 2 years since this, and we've gotten other ceremonies that don't have the same experiences. Most of these cats don't experience the same things as Firestar. In fact, the most common sensation within cats getting their 9 lives is the ground disappearing under them. But what about the non-leader StarClan experiences? Medicine cats don't need to die to visit StarClan. Not only that, but they use the same exact conduit, the Moonstone or the Moon Pool, to go to StarClan. And what makes things worse for this interpretation is that Leafpaw's experiences when going to StarClan are almost identical to Firestar's. Leafpaw's experiences with the Moonstone are closer to Firestar's than any other leader. Leafpaw's whole body becomes cold, she experiences deafness and blindness, she can't feel anything, she's brought into a series of visions that she seems to find normal before waking. The second scene that we have with Leafpaw has the exact same experience. Cold seizing her, floor going away. The same thing happens to her eventually after she discovers and they start visiting the Moon Pool. J-Paw's experiences are all totally different, and this is fine. He has superpowers related to this sort of thing, and he's an anomaly anyway. But Alderpaw's is more like Leafpaw's. The cold jolts through him, but the floor doesn't vanish and there's no falling. As soon as he opens his eyes, he's in StarClan. I think this implies pretty instantly that the coldness, the falling, none of that is supposed to represent death. I think Firestar, when he speculates that this sensation is death, is wrong. Not that he was intended to be wrong, but instead that he is. by the fact that this was already disproven by Leafpaw having the exact same experiences as him, but also by the fact that this logic isn't ever repeated going forward. Firestar's quest is a Power of 3 book. All sequences with Leafpaw experiencing the same exact thing as Firestar would have already been written, and then they just never revisit this concept. I think that if or not the leader dies when receiving their lives depends on if or not the people writing these books consider the Warrior Cats Wiki a series Bible more so than anything that we've actually seen. But back to the point. Sunstar doesn't receive all of his lives because Pinestar apparently took one when he left. Sunstar tells this to Bluefur himself, saying, "They gave me only 8 because Pinestar kept his 9th. This frustrates me, as Pinestar would have one life either way if he was still alive. Where does the life they take from him go? Into the void? Do they keep it? Do they harvest it for a later leader ceremony or two?" And then Nightstar we weren't really sure about until the new graphic novel. He's taken to StarClan entirely, much like any leader who would be granted lives, but he's refused and sent back. Broken Star is still respected as the Shadow Clan leader by StarClan, who claims they can't choose leaders for living cats, and then they shuffle him back to the living. They don't even give him the lives that Broken Star previously lost. They just kind of send him home and say, "Better luck next time." Now, Tigerheart is dead. He's in StarClan as a StarClan cat. He tells StarClan he wants to go back to be alive with his family, and he's sucked back into his body. The book says, "He closed his eyes, bracing himself for pain and cold, and drifted down onto chilly stone." He ends up on some sort of infinite rock plane with a sky above and around it, like a Minecraft flat world just made of stone, and it's night. He gets all 9, and the cats there confirm he's still dead before receiving any lives. We can assume that for Tigerheart, one of these lives is used bringing him back to life, and the other 8 are all extras. In fact, they say that to him. They say one of these lives is being used to revive him, which implies that he did not need to be stripped of his old life to be given the new lives, because otherwise, well, he's pre-stripped. Just give him the new lives. Rowan Star is already dead too, so there's no confusion as to if or not he had to give up his own first. Windrunner, however, is also dead when receiving lives, or nearly dead. She's kind of like on her last legs and dying in front of them as she receives them. Not only this, but unlike with Nightstar and Sunstar, there is no living leader of the clans before her who could sit on one of the lives. Despite this, she only gets 8. This is before Tigerstar gets all 9, and by the same team. What determines this? Seemingly nothing? It's nonsense. Windrunner only gets 8 just because. Now, the text of the book implies that Windrunner got 9 lives. She doesn't. There's no point at which Windrunner is given a separate life from the other 8. In fact, Greywing literally says, "We can't do anything about that life, but we can give her these ones." And then, at the same time, the text of the book repeatedly says that Windrunner got 9 lives, but we only saw 8. Half Moon says that she got 9 lives, and she brags that she got 8 more on top of being revived. Firestar implies that they take away your original life to give you new ones. That would mean, as Windrunner and Tigerstar have already lost their first life, that they would still get 9. This is only the case for Tigerstar, to some extent. Likewise, the sensation of dying that comes with the ceremony is seemingly only experienced by 3 leaders. That we see, anyway. That's Firestar, Blackstar, and Windstar. But Leafpaw isn't dying every time she goes to the Moonstone. Additionally, the cats note a difference between Mothwing sleeping and the Medicine Cat's behavior when touching it. This is, seemingly, essentially, just what contacting StarClan through the conduit does. It feels cold, or makes your body cold and still. It makes the floor vanish and makes you feel like you're falling. You then either feel the ground under your feet, or open your eyes in what you initially thought was nothingness, only to be greeted by StarClan. We're left with problems regardless of if or not Firestar is right. If a cat is killed before getting their lives, something exclusively suggested by Firestar in Firestar's quest and nowhere else, either Windrunner only receiving 8 or Tigerstar receiving all 9 doesn't make sense unless Windrunner died once more while receiving the rest of her lives, which wasn't shown to happen. Additionally, Tigerstar doesn't need to be killed because he's already dead, so why would he miss out on one of the lives? The cat already being dead should be a benefit to the life-giving, not a problem problem that causes them to get less. Tigerstar was also seemingly dead longer than Windrunner, so that doesn't make sense either. There's no real explanation I can scrape together for it, besides maybe that Tigerstar wasn't entirely dead yet, much like Squirrelflight in her Super Edition. Unfortunately, he totally was. They say that he is. When it comes to Nightstar and Sunstar, getting them at all is probably more so a question of if or not the leader before them actually gave up their lives in some sense, or gave up their position. But it still feels odd that Sunstar was punished for Pinestar leaving. There wasn't an immortal kitty pet running around. He only had one remaining life, and arguably it could have been the one he started with if he wasn't killed and stripped of it. Why 9 in universe? Also, do they only have 9 to give? That wouldn't make sense either, especially with Windstar in the mix. Who's limiting them? What is limiting them? Why do they have this ability? Who knows? They don't tell anyone why someone like Sunstar would only get 8 lives instead of 9. Sure, they say because Pinestar still has one of them, but we're not given any rules or laws like, oh, one clan can only hold 9 extra lives at once. That's not something that's been canonized or even mentioned. And yes, obviously, outside of universe, 9 lives were chosen because cats have 9 lives. I know that. I'm not devoid of non-warrior cats media. Obviously, there's the question of if or not Squirrelflight would get the full 9. That was definitely something that I was mentioning in the original video. If she ascends, they could only give her 8 as Bramblestar still lives, or they could just be completely unaware of Sunstar entirely as a team and give her 9 just because. Or they could kill Bramblestar. No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't ever. And obviously, the biggest issue here is just massive blind spots in the Warrior Cats lore. When it comes to StarClan and how it works, it all seems to be changes that were made up, depending on what they feel like. There are no rules to their magic or universe, even though rules would make it all more engaging and interesting. They don't care. Where do prophecies come from? They don't care. Where do superpowers come from? No answer. What even is StarClan? How does it form? How did it work? No clue. No idea. And while it would be nice to get answers to these questions, we're not getting them. Warrior Cats is not up to the same standard as children's series of the same caliber. But I do have one logical explanation for Windrunner Ceremony and what happens there. The writers forgot a cat. I legitimately believe that it is entirely possible that the writers forgot a cat. I think they just miscounted. I think that they set up 8 of them, thinking they had set up 9 of them, and then they were like, okay, we're good now. And they stopped. I don't think it's any deeper than that. Likewise, the reason that Windrunner and Tigerstar need to be revived from death is because they haven't read Firestar's quest, and they don't know this tidbit of lore. As far as the new team is concerned, you get 9 lives at your 9 live ceremony. The first one doesn't count, and just kind of overlaps with your existing life, and you are not being brought back from the dead unless you're already dead. And if you're being brought back from the dead, that is costing you one of these lives. Additionally, in Tigerheart's shadow, Tigerheart's father, Rowanclaw, in StarClan, says, "We've never done this before," in regards to reviving a cat to make them leader, or to give them 9 lives. And that's just clearly a lie, because they did it 2 books before, well, 2 super editions before. So there's no lore explanation for these inconsistencies. There's just authorial explanation for these inconsistencies. Why would they keep saying that Windrunner got 9 lives when they only show us her getting 8? It's because they didn't count.